a shot in the arm for the Aam Aadmi Party, as the Supreme Court has declared that the real power lies with the representatives of democracy. A 5-judge constitution bench ruling that the Delhi government has power in all areas except land, police and public order.
We were talking about as to how the overriding or the overarching powers of the Lieutenant Governor has been clipped. It has been reduced and the Supreme Court's judgment, this part really makes it clear. The LG is bound by to act by the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. The LG can't act independently unless there are exceptional circumstances.
Drawing a line on the discretionary powers of the Lieutenant Governor, the Apex Court has ruled that the LG is bound to follow the advice of the Council of Ministers, leading the AAP to claim victory.
आज जो माननीय सुप्रीम कोर्ट का आदेश आया है, इसके बाद एलजी साहब के पास में अब ये पावर नहीं बची है कि दिल्ली सरकार उनसे कोई परमिशन लेगी किसी डिसीजन पे, ट्रांसफर्ड सब्जेक्ट पे.
I think today's judgment is a historic judgment. The confidence of the people in judiciary and in the constitutional framework has been restored.
While the BJP insisted its stance had been vindicated.
I don't see how it can be credited as a victory for Aam Aadmi Party. It isn't as if the Aam Aadmi Party or the Council of Ministers or the Chief Minister can do what they want.
Well, I think the Aam Aadmi Party has been given a lesson in what the constitutional position is very clearly, unequivocally.
As it settled the debate on who runs Delhi, the Supreme Court also underscored the need for both sides to set aside differences and work for the welfare of the people of the national capital. On Mirror Now we ask, now that the power tussle is over, can we finally see some governance in Delhi? The debate begins now.
Well, that is the big question on everyone's mind tonight. Who has the final word in Delhi? Who runs India's Rajdhani? Because honestly speaking, we're all fed up with this turf war that has gone on between the Lieutenant Governor and the elected government of Delhi, and it's gone on for far too long now. From bureaucratic appointments to the ration delivery policy, from land allotment for Mohalla clinics to the CCTV cameras project, from action against corruption to investigation into corruption charges. Almost everything became a big controversy. Almost every project that was recommended ran into trouble as the two sides sparred. Tonight, has the Supreme Court put the debate to rest? Well, you heard in the report, both sides are claiming victory. So what then? What is it? Tonight, we have gotten together, apart from representatives of the two big political parties who have stake here, we've also gotten together some of the biggest legal luminaries to really try and understand what is it that the Supreme Court has said today. Will the citizens get some governance in the national capital or not? Here is what I want to quote from what I read from the judgment. The Lieutenant Governor has not been entrusted with any independent decision-making power. In another part of the judgment, it says he has to either act on the aid and advice of Council of Ministers or he is bound to implement the decision taken by the President on a reference made by him. These are very crucial points, viewers. There's another aspect that I found interesting. The power of Lieutenant Governor, which refers to the matters where President is involved in case of a difference of opinion, represents the exception and not the general rule. Effectively, does this mean that if there is a disagreement between the Delhi government and the Lieutenant Governor, his powers can be used but only as an exception and not every single time? And the decision of the Council of Ministers must be communicated to the Lieutenant Governor, but this doesn't mean that he has to agree with it. Does this mean that his discretionary powers have been cut down? Does this mean that we'll see some governance in Delhi now? That's the big debate. Let's say good evening to our guests. Pinky Anand, Additional Solicitor General, joining us this evening. Nalin Kohli, National Spokesperson for the BJP, working closely on this case as well. Vikas Singh, President of the Bar Council of Supreme Court. Preeti Menon, spokesperson for the Aam Aadmi Party. Vinod Sharma, senior journalist. Arima Sundara, senior advocate with the Supreme Court, also with me. Mr. Kohli, I heard what you had to say in the morning, and then in the evening as well, you spoke to Meenakshi from our channel. You still believe that this verdict has actually made things very clear and gone in favor of the powers that Lieutenant Governor has. Is that correct? Mr. Kohli, good evening. Can you hear me?
I can now hear you,
Yes,
so you'll have to repeat your question.
I will do that. No, I was just referring to the comments that you've made earlier, where you've clearly said that this is a message that should go to the Aam Aadmi Party on what the Constitution really says about the powers and the distribution of powers. Do you then believe that the Lieutenant Governor
it's
really...
clear.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Well, actually, first let's get the fundamental clear. The Lieutenant Governor, Delhi is a special state. Article 239 AA is the creation for Delhi. In that sense, when it was inserted as the 69th Amendment in the Constitution in 1991. The proviso to Clause 4 gives the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi a special power, it gives him a source of power to refer to the President if there is a dispute. Now in Delhi, three subjects have never been with the elected government, which is land, police, law and order. Everything else is with the elected government. There is no change earlier or now. This worked smoothly whether you had a Congress or a BJP government in Delhi and another party government at the center. The conflict came in with the Aam Aadmi Party over the last 2.5 to 3 years despite a historic mandate. Why? Their interpretation was that we will not need to refer to the LG anything which is all the other subjects in list 2 except land, police and law and order. Now, second is they believe that we are like a state, though not a state, and the LG must behave like a governor of a normal state. That means he is bound by the aid and advise. That has been rejected because what the court in effect is saying that while the LG's concurrence is not needed on all other matters, he has to be kept in the loop for every matter, because only then would he be aware and would be able to refer the matter to the President if required. Second is the political argument that the LG is obstructing our work. So let me give you the facts which the LG's office placed before the Honorable Supreme Court. 6,303 proposals were sent to the LG's office between February 2015 and November 2017. Out of which 6,082, 96.49% were returned without any problem. Only 2 were referred to the President and 219 clarifications were sought. How is this obstructionism? What the essence is, the Aam Aadmi Party perhaps refused to understand the scope of 239 AA, which this Honorable Court has now done. And please understand, it has not ruled anything on services or ACB or anything.
Sure.
Because actually in August 2016, when the Delhi High Court gave the judgment, that is under challenge. So there are 7 petitions from the Aam Aadmi Party government side, 2 from the LG. They are pending before the Honorable Supreme Court. And now having this reference having been answered by the Constitution bench, now they will be adjudicated. That's why I'm saying nothing has changed. The power of the LG is exactly how it is. But yes, what the Honorable Court has said is that everyone has a constitutional duty. They have to work with the spirit of the Constitution. That is incumbent on the government that is elected as well as the LG. How can anyone go beyond the Constitution? You, me, anyone else. Everything has to be per the Constitution.
Okay, so let me get a response from Preeti Menon then, because the Aam Aadmi Party seems to suggest that this is a vindication of their stand. Preeti Menon, if 96% of the proposals were any which ways approved and sent back without any problems, and if today again the court has just reiterated that you must communicate all your decisions to the governor, then how is this any vindication of the Aam Aadmi Party?
I empathize with the BJP. I understand that this has been their biggest defeat because they've tried to subvert a democratically elected government by using the LG's office. So I empathize with their, despair right now, and therefore they are trying to court this and present it in a different way. Let me tell you what's actually happened. The BJP spokesperson just said, Mr. Kohli said, that nothing had changed in the rules, the Article 293 AA, nothing had changed. But two dramatic things had changed. The moment the Modi government came in power, within 2 months,
if I may just correct
they took away the... I did not disturb... Sorry. Perfect. Thank you. Immediately after the Modi government came into power, when, Delhi was under president's rule, they took away the ACB from the Delhi state government. Now, ACB doesn't report to police commissioners anywhere in the country. It reports directly to the ministry. But they took this away and put it under the Delhi police commissioner. That's the first thing that they changed. The second thing they changed is after the unprecedented mandate in which AAP government came into power in 2015, in May 2015, they passed a notification where they took away services from the Delhi government, which basically meant that the transfer and postings of the bureaucrats would be taken away from the Delhi government, and hence
but
we
Ms.
had
Menon,
no control over the performance
Mr.
of the
Kohli
bureaucrats.
says
we could not,
that all of this has not been
complete,
referred to in the verdict. So how does life change now? Yes. I'm just asking a follow-up question to you.
Can I complete? Therefore, yes. So now, what the verdict clearly states is that the LG will continue to control only three things, which is public order, land, and the police. Therefore, he has no control over services and over any other work of the Delhi government. It clearly says, much to, I'm absolutely contradicting Mr. Kohli at this point, that the LG will work only on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. These words are specifically quoted in the judgment.
Okay.
So this has been specifically said that he will not be obstructing. Okay, so that means the Supreme Court has accepted the fact that the LG in the past 3.5 years has been obstructing the government.
Okay.
And therefore they said that there will be no obstruction.
By omission of the mention of those categories.
Let me just complete this one important point.
Go ahead.
One important point that I'd like to complete over here is that today the biggest vindication of the fact that there has been a change in the way Delhi is going to be governed is when the Chief Minister reached the Secretariat, the bureaucrats that had been on strike for 3.5 months with the complete support of the LG and the BJP government had lined up with flowers and claps to welcome the Chief Minister. They were suddenly now reporting to the Chief Minister. So this big shift of the bureaucracy reporting to the Chief Minister and accepting that his authority is supreme, the authority of the elected representatives of the people of Delhi is supreme, was seen in the Secretariat today.
Okay,
so
well, whichever way this has happened, if indeed you're saying that the bureaucrats are not angry with the government or elected representatives anymore and are willing to work together, then I think Delhi is just going to be glad about that. Mr. Kohli, you wanted to say something before I go to other panelists?
Yes, please do. I'm sure you have two eminent advocates.
Yes, okay. So let me ask them then.
Anand. So you must take their views. I'll come after that.
All right, perfect. Mr. Sundaram, in whose favor has the verdict gone today?
Well, I'd say in favor of the people of Delhi, in favor of the Constitution. The fact of the matter is, however we like to couch things, there has been a turf war. And this turf war has gone on, and I am not simplistic enough to believe, or naive enough to believe, that this turf war is going to stop. It's going to continue. That's very clear, even hearing your panelists today and on other channels, each one claiming victory, where actually what they should really be saying is, look, it's now laid down very clearly that this is the system which ought to be followed. We both intend to follow the system and get on with it. That's the reason why the Supreme Court so optimistically said there should be no room for absolutism, obviously referring to the way the Lieutenant Governor has been behaving, or anarchy, obviously referring to the way the Chief Minister has been behaving. And the Supreme Court has really expressed a pious wish that both of them would act together in what appears fairly simple. And this is my takeaway from the judgment, is this. It is that Delhi and the power of the elected government of Delhi should not be treated, except for three accepted categories, land, public order, and police, as different from the powers of the elected government of any state. Although Delhi is not a full state, the powers of the elected government should not be different than the powers of any elected state government. In other words, there are various issues which fall within list 2 of the 7th schedule of the Constitution, which is called the state list, which refers to matters within the purview of the state. And what the Supreme Court has basically said is, removing these 3 accepted categories, where the state government does not have the power, in all other matters which fall under the state list, the state government, the elected government's view should be treated as supreme, and the governor, lieutenant governor, shall be bound by the advice which has been given by the cabinet. And this is the cardinal first principle of a constitutionally elected government of any state, and Delhi has really been brought in line with that. There is, however, one exception because of the peculiar nature of Delhi being the capital,
yes,
which is if there are certain issues which require a reference as an exception, not as a rule, the lieutenant governor can refer those to the president. One will only believe that the lieutenant governor is not going to burden the president by referring every matter to him henceforth,
yes,
and will follow the fact that this is exceptional. So what I will really say is the takeaway from this entire judgment is the Supreme Court has recognized the cardinal and first principle of democracy, which is that it is the elected government which should have the final say in all matters entrusted to it by the Constitution.
Right.
And that the elected government of Delhi, insofar as the non-accepted categories are concerned, will have entrusted to it all the powers with regard to matters in the state list like any other state.
Right. So let me take that point across to Pinky Anand as well. Pinky Anand, what did you make of the judgment, in whose favor does it go? And does it drastically change things from what the High Court had said in 2016 when it ruled that, that the Lieutenant Governor is the administrator of Delhi and that the aid and advice of Council of Ministers is not binding on him?
Basically, I think the judgment, when we talk about a judgment, why should we always keep talking about in whose favor? And I think to that extent, I agree in any case with Arya here to say that the judgment would be in favor of the people of Delhi. The idea is to run the governance of the special status which Delhi is in a manner which pleases the people, which is good for the people, which is favorable to the people. So that is a real crisis, I think, which was sought to be in a way sorted out, or indeed in a manner which the Constitution governs. So the ultimate issue today has been decided in a constitutional manner to basically decide how the governance, and recognizing that Delhi has a special status because it is the capital of the country, and it is not like doesn't have statehood, and it doesn't have a special status like, it doesn't have a similar position as other union territories has. So you have the demarcation and you have the manner of governance which is specified for the special status of Delhi, and I think it can go a long way in ultimately determining the betterment of the people of Delhi.
So I know I keep asking this again and again for the sake of clarity, because every single time there is some confrontation that takes place, it boils down to who has the last word. And if we are not going to get clarity yet one more time on who has the last word, then are we at any better place as citizens of Delhi than we were before this verdict came out? Mr. Kohli, that question to you, to what Sundaram also said, that is this confrontation going to continue? You also pointed out that in many of the cases, LG had already approved the schemes, or perhaps sent it back with some suggestions rather than outright dismissing them, which is legitimate.
Well, I think as long as you function within your realm of power, which comes and flows from the Constitution, there won't be conflict. You had Sheila Dikshit, you had Madan Lal Khurana, you had Saib Singh Verma, Sushma ji for a brief period. All these governments worked smoothly with the same constitutional provision of 239 AA, with all the powers as it is defined within it. You had at one period a BJP government at the center with the Congress in the state, and vice versa.
Let's be honest, Mr. Kohli.
So what has changed? What has changed is the people have come.
Whatever changed in the last 3 years is still continuing. So let's be honest, Mr. Kohli, that if the two sides are going to be what they are for the next 2 years, what do we do?
That's why it shouldn't be that way, and nobody desires it to be that way. But then again, if Miss Preeti Menon has given a long thing and added a few adjectives, let me just point out an adjective used by the Honorable Court. There is no scope of a rational anarchist. Mr. Kejriwal is the only politician I have come across who says I'm an anarchist. He said it on record when he wanted to disrupt the Republic Day a few years ago. So therefore, you can't expect the Constitution to give you the power to be an anarchist. No Constitution does. Nor does the Constitution say you can barge into somebody's home. I mean, can I barge into your studio and demand that I must be on your show? Or you must give me a place? Certainly not.
Okay.
So therefore, if they move beyond the theatrics and the excuses and only function with that, why would the LG or anyone else want to obstruct them?
But
they're supposed to work, please work.
So that possibility exists. So people of Delhi shouldn't be celebrating right now. Absolutely, Preeti Menon, show some patience. Coming to you, because from what both of you are saying, it doesn't look like there is going to be any agreement even going forward.
No, absolutely not. The Delhi government has officially welcomed the judgment. We are very grateful to the Supreme Court that democracy has been upheld, the Constitution has been upheld. Mr. Kohli is wrong on many counts, and without adjectives, let me tell you that what he's wrong on is that they took away services. It was different in the time of Sheila Dikshit, it was different in the time of Mr. Khurana, it was different in the time of Sushma Swaraj. They had control over the bureaucracy, who they could get to perform the orders that were given to them. We had a unique situation where we had no control over bureaucracy, and for the first time in the history of India, the bureaucracy, which is not supposed to go on strike, was on a civil disobedience for 3.5 months. This was a unique situation. The second thing that he mentions is that there are so many approvals given by the LG. There are 14 bills passed by the Delhi Assembly that have been pending with him for months. So there is a lot of obstructionist which even the court recognizes. But I think that going forward things will have to change, because despite BJP's political posturing on television channels, the LG is bound by the Supreme Court's decision. And the decision is very clear that he has to work on the advice and the of the Council of Ministers. It's also very clear, there is a statement over there which says that on various matters that the government need not refer everything to the LG. So what has been shown, what has been cleared in this judgment is that there was an obstruction. The Supreme Court has put an end to that obstruction. It has returned to the matters as they were before the Modi government intervened and made changes in the way the Delhi and the national capital and the central government behaved. There's one more point which I would like to point out. There was some mention about what is the status of Delhi. This government, this particular petition, this particular judgment, there was no prayer about the status of Delhi.
Yes, I know
Delhi
that.
in this government, in this prayer. I mean, we were not asking for the.
So we'll come to that aspect.
Statehood.
We will come to that aspect. This judgment
this case
is not okay. We will come to the aspect of statehood in just a bit.
We recognize and accept the Constitution as it is today.
But I may also just point out something interesting
may I just
in one sentence, that there was no, this judgment hasn't dealt with services. That is pending. That is pending. It hasn't dealt with services. And equally unprecedented is the Chief Minister calling with his whole council and literally beating up, assaulting the Chief Secretary. So, I mean, it's okay.
Mr. Vikas,
so there are unprecedented situations everywhere.
That's your allegation which you have not been able to prove.
Mr. Vikas,
it is an allegation which you have not been able to prove, whereas we have recorded footing of a minister being beaten up by the officers.
If you will allow me this, please, Mr. Singh is finally through with us. Mr. Singh, is this good news for the people of Delhi? Can we expect governance, or are there still some grey areas and open-ended spaces?
Well, there are still large number of grey areas, because if I remember correctly, the dispute used to arise mainly in respect of the accepted matters only, which is land, public order and the police. And those were the areas where Kejriwal used to say that I have the full authority and I have full right to assert whatever is to be done even in those matters. What has been said by the Supreme Court is just the obvious. And if I may say so, it is not only stating the obvious legal position or the constitutional position, but it is also a reminder to the Delhi government to not be in that anarchy kind of a mode all the time, and try and see that actually the governor, like whether it be the lieutenant governor or the governor, as far as the regular matters are concerned, which are not the accepted matters, their position is exactly the same and which nobody has ever disputed. But even in those matters where the governor doesn't have the final say, even those matters have to go to the governor. That is something which the Delhi government was denying so far, which the Supreme Court has made very clear that those matters definitely. Now I'll tell you examples. there could be cases where there could be a issue which will involve land as well as some other issue which is purely within the state.
Yes.
Now, if it is primarily land, it is outside the purview of the state. If it is primarily, supposing, say, waterworks and not land primarily, land is incidental, then it will be definitely within the purview of the state. So there could be issues which could be said to be, sort of disputed, that whether it is purely land or whether it is purely public order or whether it is a combination of two. In those cases, definitely the Lieutenant Governor has a right to refer it to the President of India. And if he is having that right to refer to the President of India, obviously every decision has to come to him, which the Delhi government has been denying all this while. So I don't see what the Supreme Court has merely said, that there is a government, there is a governor. The governor is of course superior to any government. And whenever a government acts, it acts in the name of the Lieutenant Governor. Even the one which is purely within the government discretion of the state, even those decisions, when the final order is issued, it always says Governor of Lieutenant Governor passes that order, like it says in the matter of states. So it is always the governor, which is supposed to be implementing a decision of the state. So I don't understand. It is something which is so obviously written in the constitution. I'm sure the other contentious matters which are still pending, and now with this judgment, the other matters will be decided.
Okay. So
there the real crux will be decided. This is what has been said
I'd
in
like
this
to come in
judgment.
here.
Is just the
No,
obvious.
Preeti Menon, please hold on for a minute. Can I please just get one comment in from Vinod Sharma as well? His view also is very, very essential here. And Mr. Sharma, I'm going to read out from a report that was tabled by the Delhi government, in what they claim were, tactics that were deployed by the Lieutenant Governor's office over the past 3 years when it came to specific crucial decisions by the AAP government. And this report, Mr. Sharma, said that the Lieutenant Governor in a majority of projects does not express any substantive difference of opinion with the AAP government, but delays matters interminably by often raising frivolous objections to the effect of, I do not think that this scheme is a good idea. This is the verbatim that has been given in the report, and the report goes on to give certain more examples of where it's not a distinctive rejection or difference of opinion by the Lieutenant Governor, but a tactic that the Aam Aadmi Party government believes is just a delaying tactic or creating a hurdle. Do you think those issues will continue, because we've not had any clarity on, yet again, on the final word?
You see, let's start from the beginning. The court judgment draws the line between the presidential rule element that was always there in Delhi with regard to law and order and to the police and to the land issues, and the popular aspect of the governance in Delhi. That line has been drawn by the Supreme Court today, that all issues that fall in the state list shall be decided and acted upon by the Council of Ministers of Mr. Kejriwal, and the Lieutenant Governor would have no role in that. The other issues will continue to rest with the Lieutenant Governor. The big point of contention are the services, which were brought under the direct purview of the then Lieutenant Governor, Mr. Najib Jung, and he was given absolute powers with regard to the appointment and transfer of civil servants and bureaucrats. And that decision, if you remember, came in the wake of the Aam Aadmi Party registering a case against former Petroleum Minister Mr. Veerappa Moily and a couple of central services officers at that time. And that decision came in the wake of that. That perhaps was not the right way of approaching the issue. We are yet to hear a final word from the Supreme Court on the question of services, because to the best of my knowledge, there is going to be a two-judge bench which will look into the cases, contentious cases, which couldn't be decided for lack of trust between the Lieutenant Governor and the popular government. And then they will come to a determination on the matter of services. The fact, however, remains that, for instance, the Commissioner of Police is beyond the purview of the Delhi government in any case. But what about the Chief Minister? Does the Chief Secretary, does the Chief Minister have the right to choose his own Chief Secretary or not? Whose view will prevail? Before the crisis happened in Delhi, the view of the Chief Minister was allowed to be prevailed, even in the case of Shailaja Chandra, when there was a difference of opinion between Sheila Dikshit and the then Lieutenant Governor, and the then Home Minister, Mr. L.K. Advani, interceded and said, let the Chief Minister have her way. And that is the way to deal with the situation.
Right.
Now I'm saying that the best solution will be for both the Aam Aadmi Party and for the Lieutenant Governor to wait until the services matter is finally ruled by the Supreme Court. And once that happens, and Supreme Court surely will not, they've already said that the exclusive powers of the Lieutenant Governor are limited to the 3 subjects that they have mentioned point by point. And they have not included the services in that.
So let me take that point up, Mr. Sharma.
Gray area.
Yes, and it's a very essential part. And obviously the BJP and the Aam Aadmi Party are interpreting it very differently right now. So Pinky Anand, what's your view? By not referring to services, by only referring to the other 3 aspects for exemption, does it mean that services now come under the Delhi government, or is it still open-ended?
Open-ended, the benches have been set up to decide the specific issues as to what falls within the domain of the elected government and what falls within the domain of the Lieutenant Governor, and I think these issues will be decided by the appropriate bench, so it would not be appropriate to go into that issue. What has been answered is the constitutional reference of the position regarding 239AA and the elected government and the LG, which is now a matter of record, and I think we are rather clear in the governance of the special status of Delhi regarding further what to do with the people and how the people are going to ultimately, hopefully, be able to have a better governance based upon the
Anand, I know you say that,
and
but
the specification of what was there in the constitution.
I know you say that, but look at what we are being told by the Aam Aadmi Party and the BJP. I don't think they both agree on that.
The question is, I think today these issues have been decided, so we'll wait for further progress. But when you do have, in any kind of situation, when you have a clarity regarding the position that the various constitutional functionaries have, it normally leads to a better way forward.
Okay, point taken. The other aspect, so as far as services is concerned, so okay, Mr. Singh, so I'm going to take the next question to you before you leave. I know you have to leave a little early. The aspect of full statehood, does this judgment put that debate to rest, or is that a debate we must reignite separately and take a look at it? Is that the final solution then for Delhi's problems?
Well, I don't think this judgment has laid to rest, but this judgment definitely gives an indication to the Delhi government as well as to the LG that you have to and should work in harmony, because that is the intention of the makers of the constitution. The purpose is not to have a confrontation. The purpose is that you should try and develop that trust in a working relationship, that whenever a decision comes from the Delhi government with regard to a matter which is not the accepted matter, then that should not be unnecessarily objected to or delayed for any reason, and it should be immediately approved. So that kind of an obstructionist attitude should not be there. And at the same time, there is a message to the Delhi government also that don't try to behave in an anarchist kind of a attitude, and try and respect the Lieutenant Governor, who's the head of the family as far as the Delhi government is concerned, and take his formal approval in respect of even those matters which are not accepted matters, or which are matters which are exclusive within the state, like it is done in the other state governments. So don't act as if that you don't need the approval of the Lieutenant Governor at all. And in some cases,
but is it formal
the approval of the Lieutenant Governor is required even before placing a matter in the assembly.
But is it formal approval, or is it just intimation?
Approval, yes, but at least have that courtesy.
I don't know who this gentleman is.
No,
is he a BJP spokesperson?
No, it's a formal
Can I please come in here?
No, Preeti Menon, it's Vikas Singh. He's the president for the Bar Council of Supreme Court. Yes, Mr. Singh, your answer to my question, is it getting an approval from the Lieutenant Governor on these decisions, or just informing him of these decisions?
According to me, the constitutional position is very clear. It has to have the approval of the Lieutenant Governor, which is you know, it has the decision even of the state government has to go in the name of the lieutenant governor, even on matters which are clearly within the purview of the state government. So in the judgment, although there is a mention of sending it to the lieutenant governor, but
that may not be right.
To me, that's not the correct position. When the other
That's
matters
true,
are decided by the
what he's saying is
Supreme
incorrect,
Court,
and I'd really like to come in. I wanted to come in when he was speaking earlier
because
also,
this
because
judgment
incorrect.
is more philosophical.
Yes,
He
so
is
Mr.
incorrect.
Singh, Mr. Singh,
on
I know
many
you are,
counts.
1 minute, Preeti Menon, 1 minute. Mr. Singh, I know you had to leave, but I have 3 panelists right now who vehemently are disagreeing with what you've said. I would request that you just stay on and hear out what they have to say. Preeti Menon first, and then we'll go to Mr. Sundaram.
So very quickly, I'll point out a few things which are incorrect in what Mr. Singh said. I'm sorry, I'm not aware who he is. I can't see the television screen right now. But what I'd like to say is, first he said that all the problems that were there between the Delhi government and the LG were related to land, public order and the police, which is completely incorrect. All the issues were like delivery of ration services, hiring e-vehicles, e-buses in order to curb down pollution. So the issues that were waiting and were being obstructed by the LG were to do with the day-to-day governance of Delhi. They've had nothing to do with the 3 restricted subjects. So that was one incorrect thing which he pointed out. And the second thing that he seemed to suggest is that there is nothing in the judgment. You know, this is just obvious, and it was always the status. You think that the Supreme Court had a 5-people bench, 5 Chief Justices of India and the Chief Justice himself deliberating over an issue for nearly 2 years when there was no issue at all? They've taken this matter really seriously, and you must respect the Honorable Supreme Court because it has taken its time, deliberated and given a judgment that the LG has to work
also, you're responding to what Mr. Vikas Singh has said. He is the President of the Bar Council for Supreme Court. He's obviously just sharing his view on how he has read the verdict. Mr. Sundaram, you also disagree, because the understanding is that the Lieutenant Governor has to act on the advice of the ministers.
Look, the fact of the matter is I've been hearing this comment that the judgment of the Supreme Court has left many grey areas. I'm afraid I can't concur with that at all. The judgment of the Supreme Court was a constitutional bench judgment which really went into the issue as to the relative powers of the Lieutenant Governor vis-a-vis the elected government. And the Supreme Court judgment, the constitutional bench, has unequivocally held that other than the 3 accepted issues, it is the elected government which shall have primacy. And equally said that an approval or consent of the governor is not necessary, because if that became necessary, then it takes away from the primacy of the state government, of the elected government, with regard to matters which are within the state list. So I see no grey areas in this judgment. Yes, there are various cases pending, which cases will be decided in accordance with the judgment. But according to me, the judgment is absolutely clear. It says there are 3 accepted issues which are beyond the purview of the elected government. All other issues are within the purview of the elected government if they're within the state list. If there's a manner of grave doubt as to whether one is overlapping into the other, it will be referred by the Lieutenant Governor to the President as an exceptional case. I don't see where there is grey. According to me, it is black and white. According to me, it is exceedingly clear. And according to me, it can be nothing but a political game to try to bring greyness into what is very clearly black and white.
Okay, I'm also going to say good evening to Aarti Mehra, senior BJP leader, also joining us at this moment. Mr. Singh, do you want to respond to what Arima Sundara has said first?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll quickly respond before I leave. The Constitution itself says that the Lieutenant Governor, the Chief Minister the Lieutenant Governor will act in the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. Now, if you look at the article which is 139 AA, which is with regard to Delhi, or if you look at the regular article 164, which is with regard to any other state, where the governor has to act on the aid and advice of the state government, the governor is bound what the Supreme Court has said as far as a subject is concerned on whatever the cabinet advises. that clearly means that you have to go to the governor, get his, but he will be merely some kind of a person putting his stamp of approval. But that doesn't mean that you don't even need that. I mean, that is the constitution itself, that you act under the aid and advice. The aid and advice is binding upon you. Now, if it is, that is on accepted matters, it is, you can't, you can't decide what is to be done. But on all other matters which are state subjects, your aid and advice is binding on the governor, is what the government has, what the Supreme Court has said.
Okay.
And if it is binding, then you can't stop it, you can't delay it, you can in some cases only. So it's not as if that he is not to be consulted at all. It's not as if it doesn't go to him. It has to go to him, but it will be binding upon him.
Well,
that's
okay.
all that the Supreme Court has said.
All right,
and
Mr. Singh, point
I don't
taken.
think that I need to get into this discussion any further, because I know the Aam Aadmi Party will not agree with me. So I think you can excuse me with this.
No, all right. Thank you so much for joining us. Aarti Mehra is with us. Aarti Mehra, can the people of Delhi now expect that there will be governance in the state without just more further bickering over territory?
Well, Tanvi, you see, today the judgment, as I see, the Supreme Court has insisted and reiterated the Constitution is supreme, and they insisted on the mutual trust, and mutual trust has to be two-way traffic. It can't be one way. And very clearly they have told Arvind Kejriwal, the self-declared anarchist, that stop your dharnas, your diversionary tactics, stop your dramas, and now perform.
Really? I didn't read that in the judgment.
Since they are celebrating, now you see, I don't understand in the last 3.5 years who stopped them for keeping the marshal, providing the security in the buses, to take care of the water situation of the Delhi, to take care of the electricity problem of Delhi. Who has stopped them for opening new schools, new colleges? So it's all, you see, diversion tactics by Arvind Kejriwal. So I feel today, one thing, the Supreme Court has made it very clear that Delhi cannot get full statehood. And second, the administrator is the
absolutely wrong.
Lieutenant Governor.
That is wrong.
So administrator with the mutual trust. With the mutual trust.
I'm not too sure, Aarti Mehra, if you've got that right. I'm not too sure if you've got that right, because the Supreme Court, as a Lieutenant Governor, must act of the Council of, except for the 3 areas which are, and this has to be informed that the Constitution in every aspect says that this decision and this decision should be communicated, not that they have to seek the approval of the Lieutenant Governor. Now, our difference and the interpretation of the discretionary powers, but I would go with what Mr. Arima Sundaram was saying. Preeti Menon, your response quick before I get share his views on statehood.
When I was wrong on the Supreme Dharnas to start work, I read the judgment, at which that is not yet seen. Supreme Court has delivered to Delhi. That is completely wrong. There is no prayer for statehood for Delhi in this case, in this petition. There has been no mention on the status of whether Delhi should have statehood or not. What we are dealing with is the present scenario, Delhi, and who gets to make the decisions. That is what is being discussed. So, given the special status of Delhi right now, this is the way it will perform. And the misconception has been right. Statehood has not been asked for.
Well,
statehood has not been discussed.
Point taken.
This is not a case about statehood.
Although I just add, Arvind Kejriwal and team might do well by not resorting to dharna every now and then. They must remember they are now elected representatives. They don't need to do dharna. They are the ones who get to decide now.
On the statehood.
Like you said. Yes, Aarti Mehra. Vinod Sharma wanted to come in. Go ahead, sir.
You see, when I was saying that this is a grey area,
yes,
I was referring to the 2015 circular by the central government, which gave complete powers to the Lieutenant Governor or the Anti-Corruption Bureau. I have not read anywhere in this judgment that that circular has been struck down. Now, that will come when a two-judge bench is set up to look into the matters of dispute between the state and the Lieutenant Governor, state government and the Lieutenant Governor. So I think that you will get a clarity on that sooner than later. But as of now, it is a victory for the state government. It is a victory for the mandate that the people gave to the Aam Aadmi Party, that the Supreme Court has recognized the importance of the mandate of the people of Delhi. They have at the same time recognized that there is a need to have a presidential kind of a governance in Delhi, president rule governance in Delhi in certain aspects, because the central government is part of many international treaties and it is bound by those treaties with regard to the diplomats posted here, with regard to the arrival of VIPs from abroad, visiting dignitaries, where it has to have the final say in matters of their protection and the arrangements for their security and so many other things. So I think that this debate will continue. But one thing has been drawn, one line has been drawn very clearly by the Supreme Court, which is that when it comes to serving the people of Delhi on issues other than law and order, land and police, the say shall be final of the Delhi government.
But so that's what leads to problems.
State governments are run by governors on paper.
So,
Mr.
Sharma, but this division of work
in the name of the president.
But this division of work is what is also leading to several problems. For example, when the Aam Aadmi Party claimed they wanted to set up mohalla clinics, land allotment became a big point of contention, and they wouldn't get the land. For example, when it came to security that they promised to the people of Delhi,
may I say one thing?
Again, they had to go to the center for approvals on CCTVs for the buses, and they didn't get those approvals from the Ministry of Children and Women Welfare.
Decide on a subject.
Yes. So my point here is,
when you have powers to decide on a subject, certain attendant requirements with regard to delivery on those subjects will have to be taken care of. And there the wisdom of the Lieutenant Governor, the Chief Minister will come into play. That is where the requirement of trust and the court's advice that don't be an anarchist and also don't be an absolutist, you know. The LG was being absolutist. In some ways, the Delhi government was being a little more swashbuckling and anarchist.
So for the both sides here, for the Aam Aadmi Party,
my definition for anarchy,
and for the BJP, this is exactly, and Mr. Sharma is completely
one
right
who doesn't respect hierarchy.
Yes, our constitution is a constructive one. There is no room for absolutism. There is no space for anarchy. That's exactly what the verdict says. Mr. Arima is statehood then something that we need to look at to solve some of these issues that may still persist?
Not really, I don't think so, because of the peculiar situation. Delhi is the capital and the National Capital Region is in a very unique position. I do not believe that Delhi can be treated either like any other national territory, nor can it be treated as a state in the lines of other states. Now, I don't think the fact that Delhi is not given complete statehood, as indeed our constitution very clearly brings a distinction between Delhi and other states. Article 239A is very clear. The fact of the matter is, I really don't see why the fact that Delhi is not given complete statehood should create any problem. Don't forget the Constitution itself, under the 7th schedule, has 3 lists. It has list 1, which is the central list, where only the central government has power to legislate. It has list 2, state list, where only the state government has power to legislate. And it has list 3, which is concurrent, which either can legislate, but if the central government legislates, that will prevail. Now, this is for every state. Now, let us just assume, now just see how practically this can be given an effect to. Let us assume that these 3 accepted categories, are treated as though they came under a central list, which is why the Lieutenant Governor, who is the person who is appointed by the President and the behest of the Union of Ministers, that is the central government, he will exercise the powers over those, treat it as though it is a matter in the central list, in which case the state list, the state does not have any power over those. Now, in every single state, every single legislation, questions arise. Is this ultra-virus the powers of the state government? Because is this treading into a subject covered under list 1, that is the central list, and not list 2? And the Supreme Court has always viewed these by saying what is the preponderance, what is the main purpose, the primary purpose of the legislation. If the primary purpose of the legislation falls within the state's powers, then incidentally, for its implementation, certain activities have to be undertaken, which may otherwise fall within the central powers, will be permissible. So this is all tried and tested law. If two political parties want to create a problem, they can create the problem whether it's in Delhi or in any other state. You have so many state governments, you've been seeing so much of this problem of governors acting in a manner which is totally unbefitting their office. In the recent past, you saw what was happening in Karnataka, all this kind of thing. Now, these kind of things do occur. They occur in every state, and they will occur in Delhi also, because this is the political games which will be played. But let's not therefore say that the Supreme Court judgment has left a grey area. It is not. This Supreme Court judgment, read with a number of other judgments which have come before, make it absolutely clear. And like I said, these 3 accepted subjects, what is said really, that so far as these 3 subjects are concerned, it will not be deemed to be part of the state list. It is something to be decided by the Lieutenant Governor, i.e. the central government. And that is all that has been made very, very clear. Right. And I think otherwise, there's no doubt that the first rule of democracy, that the voice of the people counts, has been upheld, recognized, reiterated by the Supreme Court. And without a doubt, it is the state government, the elected government, which will have primacy over all these matters.
Absolutely. I'm completely out of time on this debate, so I'm going to thank all my guests. But this is just what I want to read out from the order today. And like Mr. Sundaram was pointing out, this is what the Supreme Court has done. It has upheld democracy. It has upheld Constitution one more time. And goes on to say, in cases of differences with ministers, the Lieutenant Governor must work harmoniously with his ministers and not seek to resist them every step of the way. The authorities in power shall constantly remind themselves that they are constitutional functionaries and they have the responsibility to ensure that the fundamental purpose of administration is the welfare of the people. More often than not, we see that those in power, the authorities, end up forgetting that they have been put there to work for the welfare of people. There is requirement of discussion and deliberation, says the Supreme Court. The fine nuances are to be dwelled upon with mutual respect. Neither of the authorities should feel that they have been lionized. The message is clear, and the message is to both sides. You need to work together. You need to work for the people who have put you there. You need to work for the people of Delhi. Now, will the Aam Aadmi Party's elected ministers and will the Lieutenant Governor get this message, or are they going to go back to their tactics of drama, dharna, delaying the decisions, finger-pointing at each other? In many of those cases, they can choose to ignore what the Supreme Court has said. Now, one can only hope, like Preeti Menon pointed out, that the bureaucrats have now come to work. They have welcomed the Chief Minister after the verdict came. If they are going to work together as one machinery, only then can Delhi prosper, and only then can the people of Delhi heave a sigh of relief. At least now they will get some governance. Please put politics aside for a minute and think for the people of Delhi who've now borne the brunt of your face-off for over 3 years. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.